if I'm so worried about being alone, that's what's kept me in this relationship, I'd rather be alone and not be abused. So I'm just going to leave because I'm already alone. Why not just not be abused anymore?
Thank you for listening to Serves You Right. My name is Andrew, and today I got a chance to talk to Heather Melville, relationship coach and a super fun conversationalist. She specializes in people who've dealt with toxic relationships. So great for getting to know yourself, great for figuring out why you continue to repeat the patterns that you repeat. I had a fun time talking to Heather. So thank you for listening, and without any further ado, this is Serves You Right.
Sounds good. I like seeing all your books over here. I'm like, ooh, have any of them I read?
Yeah.
Are there some I need to think about?
It's a lot of, I'm a big nerd, and I've taken my nerd hat and just focused it on alcohol for most of my life. So
yeah, I see 100, like 1,001
somm,
wines. Yeah. So have you gone for a sommelier license? I mean, I know it's very hard to get into.
I got my certified. There are 4 different levels. I got my second one, and I took the test for the third and failed, which I'm fine with because it's a hard test. So every year they only have one test, and about 250 people get in, and then of those, about 50 people pass. So I got to that level. So yeah, we'll see.
Does this help? Does it help in the doors opening for you with regards to restaurants? I'm sure this is probably content you want on your show.
No, it's fine. Let's just go for it. Yeah, Heather, thanks for joining us. Yeah, before we spend the whole hour talking without actually talking.
Yeah.
So no, it definitely does help. When I moved to go and help my parents-in-law, I kind of walked into a steakhouse without knowing anyone in the city, and I said, like, I'm looking for a job. I had the certified somm on the resume, and I was hired like that day. So it's like,
yeah.
So, and it helps. There are always questions about wine, and it's really unfortunate that a lot of people make it more complicated than just like find something you like and drink that. There's a lot of fear about it, and for better or worse, wine has an upper class just stench to it that some people fear and kind of back off, and some people think they should understand, so they feel guilty they don't. And so it's this whole like trepidation when you approach the table with a wine list, and I have a lot of fun just sort of relaxing the feel and letting people kind of ease into it,
Right. Well, and there are so many varietals, and there's this idea, okay, well, if you're going to have white fish, you should have white wine. If you're going to have a steak, you should have red wine. And it's like, no, you can do whatever you want, whatever you're feeling, and it really doesn't come down to the protein. It comes down to what are the flavors? What are the spices that are going with this fish? Mm-hmm. If it's more of like a red paprika chili powder, maybe you do want a red wine, or maybe you want a white to ease the chilliness. So it's all preference, and that I ran into that too at the restaurant.
And then there's fish, yes, but there's also like prosciutto wrapped trout, and like you might want to approach that in a different way. And one of the cooler conversations I've had with Master Somm, Tim Gazer, he did a lot of courses and was teaching in China, and they have such a strong tea drinking tradition there that so many people are denatured to tannin that they actually really just do not mind having those tannic elements when they're eating fish, because they're just used to drinking tea consistently with every meal. And so he's like, my pairing rules of thumb just went out the window, and it's just a whole new pairing game. And so even cultural background will change things there. But,
that makes sense. Yes.
Sorry. But
did you have
just continuing here, you are not the pairing expert. You are an expert on healthy relationships, and one of the reasons we met up today. So how did you get into doing relationship work with people?
Well, so I left the restaurant industry to pursue a second degree in electrical engineering, because the restaurant industry, as much as I enjoyed the variety of it, the inconsistent money doesn't help. Right. So I was pursuing engineering, a list of reasons. People were like, oh, you're so good at math, you should follow up. At the time, I had an alcoholic ex, so I needed to pay for his alcoholism. And then I left him, and I continued my engineering career, and I realized how much I absolutely hated it. It was not
Mhm.
fulfilling me in any way. Yeah, it tickled my logical side of the brain, but I mean, to sit in front of a computer talking about, excuse my language, crap I didn't care about,
Mhm.
it just waned on me. And then so I was trying to like search like what's something I can bring to the table? What's a way I can create a career for myself, a business for myself. And one of the things I've always known about myself is I like to, as much as I'm sitting here talking this whole time, I also very much like to listen to people. And I noticed
Mhm.
that a lot of people come to me for advice, even if I have no experience in it. So I did my life coaching certification, and I was like, okay, they push for you to choose like a niche of where you have familiarity. What's your story? And my story is toxic relationships. My ex, it was a very abusive toxic relationship. I got out of it, healed from it, found and met my fiance in a very healthy relationship. And I realized, especially, it's funny because I went back to like my restaurant days, which is when I was with my ex, and I could just tell like those days that I came in when I was really upset of the relationship, I did horrible in the restaurant. It was just a
Mhm.
bad day, bad customers. And I say bad customers, but really it was probably my energy showing up and then getting crappy tips and stuff. But I
What's that
realized that
that saying
relationships,
where, yeah, if you meet everyone you meet in a day is an asshole, it might be that you're the asshole sort of thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the
So,
commonality? What's the common factor?
yeah, one
But
common
yeah, and
thing.
I realized that like relationships affect us in all areas of our life. And one of my like driving forces is like, imagine if all of the world had a healthy, fulfilling relationship, because then they
Mhm.
would show up different in the world. They would show up different in their life. And like, what would the world look like if we were all happy and fulfilled, in our relationships? How would it look like? And so that's a driving force for me.
Yeah, that's a good story.
A
uh
long story too.
yeah, a long story. Well, I mean, a shortened version of a long story. Wow, 8 years, you said, with a,
Hmm.
yeah, that's quite a lot. When did you realize there was a problem there?
That's
Day
a
one.
fantastic question.
Yes.
It was about a year in the relationship. It
Mm.
was the first time I experienced physical abuse. And
Oh.
I was very naive. It was my first relationship. I was very low self esteem, low self worth. I didn't have the best like images of what a healthy relationship looked like. And so I stuck around thinking that hoping that things would change and just needing that validation through a relationship, and then just thinking, well, maybe this is what everybody goes through. So it wasn't until I was finally fed up and started on my own healing journey that I came across these ideas of like, hey, that was a toxic relationship, this is what you went through, this is what you need to get out of your pain cycles, your own toxic patterns.
Yeah, a year in. Wow. I
And
guess
then you stay
even,
for 7 more.
yeah, yeah. Well, I was just thinking, even the craziest among us can hold it together for a year. Look at me for the last year, held it together. But wow, wow, and that is a hard one though. Because you always hear people like, why wouldn't you just leave? But it's not that simple. And
No.
it's so easy to tell ourselves the story of this time it's different, or it's going to be different.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, 7 years is a long time to live through that.
Well,
I've got to
and
wonder, did anyone know, or yeah,
I'm sure a lot of people in my life knew how awful he
suspicions?
was. Yeah, and they
Mm.
could see how he would be towards me. I didn't tell anybody about the physicality of it and the more like really mentally abusive stuff because I was ashamed. But going back to your
Mm.
point of like why do we stay, and that's something I focus on with my clients, and like getting the word out there that there are so many reasons why we stay. And I already listed a few of like needing that validation, having low self worth, believing this is what I deserved. Finances is another one. And that was a big thing for me,
Yeah.
which led me to be like, let me get out of the restaurant industry because there's no way I can live by myself. And at the time I was living in San Diego. So we think about it was expensive then, and like needing to get a career that would make me money so I
Mhm.
could either get out of this relationship or at least support his alcoholism. And, so
Mm.
there's so many things. And then there's also the neurological aspect that your brain actually gets rewired for the toxicity. You expect these, times of walking on eggshells. You expect the constant up and down dopamine releases with the love bombing stage where he's just constantly affectionate and then going down into the more fear driven abusive states.
Mm. I guess even if it's a horrible form of novelty, it's novelty. It's there's
Hmm.
something about it. Yeah. I'm thinking well, I think it's Rihanna. What is that? Rihanna the song like oh man,
By
it's gonna
Fleetwood Mac.
maybe the one that's like tie me to the bed, set the house on fire or whatever.
That's
Yeah.
Rihanna
You know
and
what I'm talking
Eminem.
about.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. I was going to like there are people screaming into their headphones at home. Like, but that's really not my musical genre, so yeah, that was out of my wheelhouse. I was reaching there. But
Well, you
yeah.
said Rihanna. I was like Fleetwood Mac. No, 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 no. Oh, you're talking about the duet between Eminem and Rihanna. Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. You touched on it. You actually touched on something that I was hoping to dig into with you, self-esteem, because it seems like something that you touch on a lot. So, you get trapped in these scenarios with low self-worth. You get habituated to maybe what turns out to be a toxic partner. Is it self-worth that allows you to get out of that situation? Is that too simplistic? Yeah, I guess could you talk to us about self-worth and how that all fits in?
Well, so one thing I like to identify is the difference between self esteem and self worth. So, self
Okay.
esteem is like the image you have about yourself, and it's more based on achievements and actually what other people think about you. Whereas self worth is this inner deep knowing that because you're alive, because you're here, you are worthy of good things. You are worthy of unconditional love. And that's something
Mhm.
I've said this before, that if you focus on any real problem we have in our lives, whether it be relationships or anything like that, if you go so deep, it's probably an issue with self worth, that you're just believing you're not worthy or that you're not enough, and that if you're not enough, you're not going to be loved in the way you want to be. So, as far as what got me out of it, I would say it would be self worth. I love to share this
Mhm.
story that it hit me. So I had moved away for electrical engineering. It was my second degree, so I had to move out of state because California was very impacted. And so I was still in the relationship, but I was long distance, which I think was a big part of me getting away too. And that's the thing I always say, you got to somehow have no contact, get out of that cycle, because you won't be able to
Yes.
see it, right? When you're in it, you can't see it.
Yep.
So I was hiking one day and it hit me that, you know what? I feel isolated and alone in this relationship because I can't talk to anybody about it. I feel miserable. I can't make any choices because I'll be berated and, potentially physically abused. And you know what? If I'm so worried about being alone, that's what's kept me in this relationship. I'd rather be alone and not be abused. So I'm just going to leave because I'm
Mhm.
already alone. Why not just not be abused anymore?
If you're enjoying this, please take a moment, share it with a friend that you think might actually enjoy it too. It'd mean the world for me, and that's really all I could ask of you. All right back into it.
And I think that probably comes from self worth, that it's like I'm worthy to, if I'm going to be alone, to at least enjoy life, at least be a little bit happy, at least be the one who's abusing myself, not somebody else.
Sure, yeah. And I think that's got a real beauty to it. That's something my therapist will say every once in a while. And I think, well, maybe him, maybe it's something I picked up in a self help book. Who knows? That the thing that you can't feel, the thing you won't feel, is the thing you're certainly going to feel at some point. So if you're staying in the relationship for loneliness, you're afraid of loneliness, then you're going to feel loneliness either in it or out. So you kind of
Right,
have to
right.
face the
Like,
demon head on. Yeah.
that makes sense. And especially, like, why do some people constantly bounce from relationship to relationship? It's that desperate energy. And then when they're in the
Hmm.
relationship, they still feel that desperation, whether it's for validation, love, affection, whatever. But whatever you're trying to avoid, you probably eventually will feel.
So you got away, and that helped you break the ties and get out. How do you now coach people to get out of? Is it a similar thing? Take the space to figure out who you are, or is it
So I
so
use
multifaceted? Who knows?
Yeah, it really is multifaceted. Every single case is uniquely different because, it really depends. Again, like as much as we say, well, why did you stay? The other contribution is finances. Do you have a way to leave, to break that no
Mm,
contact? Typically, my clients meet me after they've already left and they're on that journey of like, hey, now that I'm out, I'm still struggling, still have these patterns of my own, and I'm just at a low point. How do I move on so that I don't fall into the trap again of another toxic relationship? But when I do
mm,
have the occasional person who's still kind of in it, it's really like taking account of, do you have the means to leave now financially? Do you have a support group you can lean on? And what's the level of toxicity? Is this like a dangerous situation where you probably need some law enforcement assistance? In which case, I am not necessarily certified to help you. There are plenty of
yes.
helplines and stuff like that. But
Sure.
it's like,
Yeah.
so for me, obviously I was able to move away. So it wasn't that level of like he was coming to track me down kind of thing. But there was
Mm,
some toxicity in the sense of my neurological, the way my brain was wired to be clinging to him
mm.
kind of thing. So I usually focus on that when it's not so like he's coming after me with a knife that either I'm with him or he kills me kind of thing. That's
Sure.
extreme.
Yeah. In my head, I'm kind of thinking of it as, a good analogy is maybe like you have a sprained ankle clinic and like, you're open and most people come to you after they sprain their ankle, not before. So it's like when the pain's most acute and then someone shows up and they've got like a broken bone and you're like, you need to go to the hospital. This is
Yeah,
beyond my
yeah,
ability. Yes.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
I can't
You
reset that bone for you.
Exactly. I think if you're okay with it, I think it would be helpful to kind of talk about, are there ways to spot these traits in people before you get in the relationship?
Well, and so that's what we kind of refer to as like red flags or deal breakers, and
Sure.
kind of understanding the difference. But this is what I focus on too, is if you haven't healed the toxic patterns within yourself, because a toxic relationship doesn't just come out of nowhere. It comes from
Mm,
you attracting somebody because you already have a toxic relationship with yourself. And that can show up in forms of people pleasing, of being codependent, and like I said earlier, I had low self esteem, low worth. So, of course, I attracted somebody who would uphold those beliefs about myself in some way.
mm,
Or in the beginning, he would love bomb me so that I'd be like, oh, maybe I am worthy, and then slowly switch into maintaining my beliefs about myself. So that's what I focus on first, is addressing those, because if you don't address those, you're going to ignore any of those red flags that pop up. But the one big ones are, I would say, is how do you feel when you're around this person? And I know we
oh,
talk
that's
about,
good.
I get the butterflies with him. Now, is that because you're nervous because you don't feel safe, or is it because you're excited? So really diving into, how are you feeling? How do you feel around this person? Do you feel safe around this person? Do you feel comfortable to be yourself and to be vulnerable? And that's not just red flags for toxic relationships. I think that's every relationship, right? Like if you want a healthy
Yeah.
relationship, you need to show up as yourself, because eventually the mask will come off. You will be tired of upholding some facade that you thought you needed to uphold. So it's important to always be authentic. Again, with toxic relationships, a red flag could be that you don't feel comfortable to be yourself. You don't feel comfortable to be vulnerable. Another big one, that this was a big buzzword that came out that I didn't know about until after the relationship, was gaslighting. Big
Oh,
word we've been
good.
using. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is gaslighting? Like, I've heard some definitions of it. I've heard some people talk about it, but yeah, please, yes,
It's
educate us. I want to know. Yeah.
at the basis of it, it's basically just them not validating how you feel and making you feel like you are delusional. So
Mm,
that could be shifting blame. That could be like, oh, no, that's not really how the situation went down. You're crazy, or you're reading into things too much. So it's basically just a moment of them to deny how you feel and make you think that you're crazy for feeling the way you feel.
Okay.
And that can show
Okay.
up in any relationship. That's not just a toxic pattern, but toxic relationships, it's really like gaslighting, to the point where like I had myself thinking that maybe I was just a horrible girlfriend, that I deserved all of this treatment. And if I had been a better girlfriend, maybe I wouldn't be treated this way. Or especially because we had a lot of nights where he would go out drinking, come home. There would be either, some verbal abuse of something, or on the rare cases, it would be physical. And then, he would just be like, oh, that's not how it went down, or I don't remember. And so it's just like, well, great. Yeah, you were drunk. So of course you don't remember, but I'm stuck with this memory. And now I don't trust you
Hmm.
and can't be vulnerable with you.
Okay. Yeah. And so I think the way you described it is perfect because I've struggled in my head to have a kind of clear delineation between gaslighting and disagreement.
Mm,
But I think it's that added wrinkle of what you're thinking and believing is wrong and invalidating it.
yes.
And in a very blessed way in my life, I think I struggle with identifying it because I don't do it and my wife doesn't do it to me. So it's like I'm happy to not be intimately, acquainted with this idea. But so there is a difference between saying like, I disagree with what you're saying. What you're saying isn't wrong and you're valid for having these emotional reactions and feelings, but we may just see things differently versus the way you're describing that as crazy. You are wrong. Yeah, there is that
Right,
subtlety
exactly.
there. Okay,
I like that
great.
differentiation, the way you did that, because you're right, because we are going to have disagreements. And that's where I teach people about healthy relationships. Is it's not like you get rid of conflict. You are going to have conflict, and a healthy
Hmm.
relationship allows you to approach that conflict in a way that brings you guys closer. But like, it's that idea of, hey, you are seeing the world differently this way, I see it this way, I disagree with the way, but that doesn't mean you're wrong and I'm right. It just means that we're not we're not attributing the same meaning, we're not focusing on the same
Hmm.
things. Versus, yeah, you're completely wrong about life, you're delusional, you should be locked up in a psych ward.
You're broken some way.
Yeah, you're
There's a
broken.
there's an author, psychologist, blanking on his name in Australia, who writes and studies psychopaths. And I will connect this. Don't worry. His book is The Wisdom of Psychopaths. But on his website, I remember going and checking it out. And there's a quiz. It's like, are you a psychopath? Take the quiz to find out. And so I clicked on it because I was like, I don't think so. But and then it said, if you're worried that you might be, you're not. It's like, oh, it's a good razor. The people that he studies, the people that turn out to be psychopathic, are never actually worried that they are. I feel like it
Hmm.
might be a similar thing. Like the guys out there who are worried they might be gaslighting probably aren't. those
Right,
are the
right.
those are the people that are just like, you hear this word and hear how bad it is. It's like, I hope I'm not doing that. And if you hope you're not, you're probably not. I hope.
Right, right. Well, and
Yeah.
it's just that level of hope is also that level of awareness, so that you will make choices when you do have disagreements, that it's like, wait, 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 let's make sure I'm not gaslighting. Okay, I'm accepting the other person even though I think they're
Yes.
wrong, but that's how I'm accepting that they have a view of the world and it's different from my own.
So when you get clients that have, say, left these toxic relationships, how do you get them back on the right track? Is there kind of a tried and true method, or
Well, I mean, we're all unique beings, right? So one thing
fix our
will
lives?
not
You've got 5 minutes. Go.
exactly. I do have like an umbrella approach, and
Sure.
this is something I've been working on. It's something I realized I went through in hindsight. Of course, I didn't have this approach set for me. I wasn't like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go in the healing awareness phase, then I'm going to go into the clarity phase. But so I have a basic approach, and the first approach is that healing awareness of just accepting what you've been through, processing, understanding, seeing the patterns within yourself and the relationship and previous relationships, right? If you've been in multiple toxic relationships. And this is kind of the
Mhm.
phase where we go into like, what are red flags? What do they look like? what is a deal breaker? So for me, a deal breaker was that year into the relationship when he first hit me. That should have been a deal breaker where I walked away. Obviously, I didn't. And it's a lesson
Mhm.
that I can share with my clients. But then the next
Hindsight's
phase is
2020. Yes.
yeah, right. Exactly, exactly. Do you ever watch South Park? Okay, it's the what's it, Captain Hindsight, where he just comes in
Oh
and
yeah.
he's just like, oh yeah, we should have done this, and it's like that's your superpower is to be able to say hindsight. I'm sorry, I just think that one's funny. But so, and then the next phase after we've kind of processed, because you still need a level of accepting of what happened. It's not giving an explanation and making it okay. It's just accepting it. Because the other part is if we're fighting what happened, we're not allowing ourselves to go deep into understanding to prevent repetition, right? The next phase is about, self-worth and confidence, understanding those patterns and how to build self-worth, how to build confidence in yourself. And that's like small steps of getting back into your intuition, trusting yourself, making decisions on a daily basis. I would say for me, this phase was, and I always love to push this for anybody, not just people healing from toxic relationships, but go on a solo trip somewhere you're not familiar with. But when you do that, when you go by yourself and you have to figure out once you get off the plane, off the train, how to get to your Airbnb, hostel, hotel, whatever, and you've got nobody there next to you saying, yeah, I think we just need to go this, and this. It's all on you. It builds that resilience, that muscle that we need to come
Mhm.
back to. So that's that next phase. The next phase after that is clarity and vision. And this is kind of what I talk about is what do you want? You've already experienced what you don't want, and most of us can sit here and give you a whole list of everything that we don't want, but what is it that we do want? We have to be clear on that, because if we're not clear, then we're just going to settle for whatever we get.
Mhm.
And so we
The
focus in on that.
default option. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What does a healthy relationship look like to you? How do you feel in that? What are your goals going forward? And that's the other part is oftentimes in relationships, especially toxic ones, we lose ourselves. We let go of our goals, our dreams, our likes, our hobbies to appease somebody else. I have this fun worksheet on my website. It's called Dream Again, and it's all about like letting go all those things that you had to pretend to like, and then focusing on some of the things that you've always wanted to try, all of these experiences or hobbies or things you were interested in that you never pursued because somebody would say something. One of mine was like things I no longer had to care about. Marvel movies. I no longer had to pretend like I knew what was going on in the Marvel universe. No longer had to pretend like I wanted to go see the movies. And then the other thing was I no
You were
longer had
free.
to know. Yeah, sorry for your fans who are Marvel fans. No offense to you. It's just not my cup of tea. But the other thing was I didn't have to know football players and their stats anymore. I know there's a part of a relationship is taking consideration somebody else's hobbies, somebody else's interests. But a lot of the times, a toxic pattern is where you take them and you just immerse yourself to the point where it's like it's your own hobby, even if it really isn't. So it's breaking up all of that. And then the final phase is moving into this place where you might be comfortable with a future relationship. And what does that entail? Well, focusing on your communication skills. How do you communicate, especially in a conflict? Do you go straight into defense mode and start blaming the other person? That doesn't move a conflict into resolution. And then understanding, like, especially in today's world, dating is such a different thing than it used to be, but like navigating dating apps. And I like this one because
Mhm.
I met my fiance on Tinder. And I know today people are like, Tinder? I mean, that's the hookup app. But there's a way to approach dating apps in a way that is healthy. And then the other thing is, we don't realize that all of our profiles can still show our toxicity, our toxic patterns if we haven't healed them yet. It'll come from a level of desperation of trying to
Yes.
portray who we think we are. So that's the final phase of just getting you prepared for what a healthy relationship will be like with yourself and with somebody else. Sorry, was that 5 minutes? Did I heal your life now?
Oh no, that was perfect. That was perfect. While you're talking through that, I actually popped in my mind. Have you ever heard of Edward Slingerland? He wrote a book called Drunk, and that's why most people
Mm-mm.
know him. but he's
Okay,
a
no.
professor. And he also wrote a book called Trying Not to Try because he's really big into Eastern thought
I
and
think
philosophy.
I feel like I've heard
You
that
think,
book,
yeah.
but these are all books that if you
Yeah.
send to me later, I will put them on my reading
It's like I will
list, my
read all
ever-growing.
this. Yes, but one of his big things that he really digs into, and it's an example that everyone is familiar with. When you need a date, when you need a boyfriend, when you need a girlfriend, you have that neediness about you. It's almost impossible to get a date, find a person, find a mate. But he says it so beautifully, and I'll probably butcher it, but no, it's close. It's something along the lines of, we all know it's true that when you need a date, you won't get one. And when you don't need a date, when you don't want one, you'll get one. The hard thing is, it's hard to know what to do with this information. I feel like you were kind of guiding a person through how they would deal with it. Like, yes, you're not looking for dates or not looking for dates. You're going on a vacation alone. And you're going to see that there's nothing to fear about being alone, because once you're okay with being alone is when you'll be with someone. It's
Right,
like
right.
you have to kind of develop that sense.
Well, there's this idea that once you get comfortable being alone, there's this level of inner peace. And then when you have that, now you're less likely to ignore red flags and settle because you're not willing to sacrifice that peace for just
Hmm.
anybody. It's got to be somebody who compliments you, who is in line with this vision of a healthy relationship that you have. And it's so funny you said that because both relationships, even though my first one was toxic, I had this idea of like, nope, I give up. I don't want a relationship, or I'm just not going to try anymore. And almost immediately fall into my
Right
lap.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is the thing. It's very strange. Well, I think it does kind of point to the fact that we're, you know, fake to ourselves. So we don't fully understand what's going on there. We kind of have to work obliquely to get at what's inside. I was even
Mhm.
thinking what you were talking about, do you feel comfortable with the person? The first thing that popped in my head was the English word arousal, and arousal can be something that has a sexual connotation, something you're attracted to another person. But we also use that in the fight or flight. You are in an aroused state because you sense danger. And it's interesting that people that have lost some of that sense and touch with their inner self, you can definitely confuse those things. Like, I feel exciting around him. It's like, well, that's because he is dangerous, honey. Like, yeah, be careful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your spidey senses are tingling not because you're excited by him,
Yeah.
but because it's dangerous.
Do you have a sense of how many people you've helped up to this point? I'm just curious.
I think it would probably, well, you never know your real impact, right? I don't know how many
Oh,
people have
sure.
gone to my website, but it's been about
That's
20
true.
to
That's
30
true.
people so far. I'm still fairly new in building this
Okay.
business, but I
Perfect.
do monthly webinars. And so that's been helpful as well. And that's my goal, right? I mean, obviously, I want you to work with me because I'm trying to also maintain a sustainable living. Even if it's just one thing I say that gets the ball rolling, gets you that light bulb moment. If I can be of assistance in any way possible to get that for you, that maybe that one thing you heard then makes you start thinking about something else and you're able to change your life in some way. That's what I want. That's what I really want is
Yeah.
a deep impact and, like leave the world better than you found it kind of thing.
And to live in an intentional way. You
Yeah,
clearly have a track. You have the engineering track still open. So there's always a life waiting for you. It's
right.
worth giving a shot at helping some people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
For the listener who's out here wondering how to get in touch with you or how best to work with you, how could they find more about you?
Well, I would say the best part, I mean, you probably have heard me on this podcast now, and you're like, okay, I kind of like her. Uh, Let me take the next step, and the next step would be just to schedule a little what I call a clarity and connection call. It's a free 30-minute call where we
I was
talk
about to say, I
about.
saw that was free too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, maybe do you really want to listen to my voice for the next, 6 months that we work together? Maybe you don't like my energy, or maybe I don't like yours. So that's where there's this call to see if we can work together, if I'm a good fit for you, or if, like I said before, like we talked about, you've got a broken leg and I don't set bones. So, kind
Yeah.
of thing. Like, So that would be the next step, which is on my website, healthyrelationships.info. If you go to the coaching page, you'll be able to schedule the 30 minutes. And I require that just because we need to get it filled, right? I don't want you to spend money
Mhm.
if you aren't going to want to show up, because at the end of the day, I can show you the door, but you have to walk through it. So
Mm.
that's the next step. Also, if you're not ready, I have fun worksheets all available. Like there's a self-worth worksheet where we kind of dive in to how to build that worth in yourself. Like I said, that dream again worksheet, fun to get excited about what you've been dreaming about that you've been suppressing. I think there's another one that focuses on your confidence and rebuilding that trust again within yourself. And then I do monthly webinars. Like I said, it's on Eventbrite, and again, healthy relationships is across the board, so you'll be able to find me. And then, of course,
Perfect.
we have the social media, but I'm not
Yeah.
always as active there.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and then there's also quizzes on there. Don't forget about the quizzes. Those are cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
mean, everybody
So
loves to answer questions about themselves, so
yeah. Find out. I think the one was like find out which book to read. Find out like what was it was like who my empowered
oh, so
woman
I have
was or something like that.
yeah, that was it. Yeah, find your feminine archetype. Like to
That's it.
understand,
Yeah.
like, are you a nurturer? Are you what was it, a temptress? I think I'm a nurturer and something else, and I forget. But the other one that I really love, and I think it's important for everybody, and it's part of what I teach as well, is understanding your needs. And so I come from this school of thought that there are 6 basic human needs that we all have to meet in some way, whether it's negative or positive. You touched on it earlier about the variety of a toxic relationship, how it's constantly, it could be good or bad. And that
Mhm.
variety was a way for me to meet that was a way to meet my need for it. So it's so
Mhm.
interesting, like how even a negative relationship can meet all of our needs. So I focus on
Yeah.
that, and there's a quiz on there to do. Again, I love taking quizzes about myself. Obviously, you do because you want to find out if you're a
Find out more and
psychopath.
more. I'll click on that. Sure.
Yeah,
And for anyone listening to all those, I'll have a link to Heather's website. I'll make sure that we have all that in there just so it's easy to click on. Before we get done today, I did want to ask, this is a mostly service industry, restaurant, bar focused podcast. Are there any challenges that you'd foresee or any like particular struggles for someone in the service industry? Some in terms of relationships.
well, if, like I said, relationships kind of affect all areas of our life. And I can really remember some of those days where I had to go into work after having a big fight and I didn't show up myself. And especially in the service industry, a good day and a bad day can mean a range in your income, right? Like you have a
Mm.
bad day, you show up at work and you're not as enthusiastic, and you don't maybe try to upsell, and you don't go the extra mile. And when your salary is based on how you show up, it's very important to understand that your relationships might affect that as well.
There's no guarantee, and also you're on display. So it's
Yeah,
double
yeah,
whammy of
yeah.
yes, you're not showing up. Okay. Yeah. And then anything about the nature of the work too. There's the late nights, the holidays, like anything that you
Yeah.
remember being a challenge or
Well, especially because, like, I come from a divorced family, right? So I still have to split my holidays. And that's assuming I get those holidays off. And then with my ex, he always wanted to go to his family. So it's like I have 3 people I need to see. There's 3 different holidays, and I'm not guaranteed any of those off. So it was really, I noticed that I would just default to him. And so I didn't see my family as often, which was kind of a
Mhm.
bummer. But that is kind of the nature of the game when it comes to the service industry. And it's tough to really focus and understand that, yeah, everybody wants to celebrate these holidays. So everybody wants the time off. And especially if you're not even close to in the same area where your family is, that's tough too.
I've been doing this for 20 years and it's for the foreseeable future what I'll do. And I don't expect or think my parents will ever understand it. I think every holiday season I will still have the same conversation of you don't get around the Christmas season. I mean, no, again I do not. It's
And in fact,
yes.
that's probably the busiest time for me.
It is the busiest time of the year. Yes, yes. And so I do what I
You
can.
know, it's funny that I sometimes think about, like, oh, what if I just got like a side side little job of going back as a bartender. And, I think I loved that freedom, right? You could take 4 or 5 weeks
Mhm.
off and nobody bats an eye, as long as it's not around a holiday, of course. But,
Sure.
and that, inconsistency, but the excitement as well. And then I'm like, no, there's something about dealing with the public when it comes to food that is not like a necessity. It disheartens me a little bit that somebody could
Mhm.
be so rude to you because their fried rice didn't come out as quickly. And it's like, this is not a giant ordeal that you should be screaming at a perfect stranger.
Well, on that note, I'm gonna go get some fried rice out to some stranger stuff. Heather, thanks, thanks for coming on and spending a little bit of time with us today. It was a real pleasure to talk
Yeah,
to you.
I had a pleasure too. I'm sorry that we didn't really talk about the service industry. I have some crazy stories about
All right,
that.
crazy. Before we get off here, craziest story you've got, and I'll even give you one probably.
Okay, now what is the PG rating of your audience?
If someone is still listening an hour in, it's okay. I rate it as explicit just to make sure we don't have
Okay.
to worry about language, but go for it.
So we had this, he was a regular, but like not a regular in the sense that we knew each other by first name kind of thing. But he would come in and he was this older gentleman. And I don't know if he was like hitting on me, but there were multiple times where he was very, very, very inappropriate. And I would tell my manager, and my manager would be like, "I'll brush it off." So the one of the first times he said, "Hey, let me tell you a joke." And I was like, "Oh, okay," not thinking anything of it. And he goes, "What are the only two things in this world that don't have sugar or salt?" And or that don't have sugar. And I was like, "I don't know what." He's like, "A penis and a vagina." And I was just like, I don't know you that well. We're in a family restaurant. This is not okay to be saying this to me. And then the next
This is a
time,
TGI Friday.
yeah, yeah, right. Well, it was P.F. Chang's. It was P.F. Chang's.
Oh, okay,
And
cool, cool.
and it was just like, this is not okay. I told my manager, she's like, brush it off. But then he would come in and he started calling me sugar lips. And it was just like made my skin crawl. And I finally told my manager, and she had walked up to him, and he told this like another really nasty joke to her. And so she kicked him out. She was like, "You need to leave. You don't have to pay for your meal, but you need to leave. This is not okay." And it's so interesting that people think it's okay to do that. This isn't Cheers, and everybody
I
thinks every
know.
bar is Cheers.
Yes. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Get out. Sure.
Yeah.
uh, but mine is thankfully not sexually inclined. It's something I'd forgotten about till this last week, so I was excited to tell it. I work at a steakhouse, and I was working at not the one I currently work at, but another sister location because I transferred about 2 years ago. We're right next to a hospital, so we get a decent crowd of doctors, nurses. A lady comes in, little wide eyed, looks a little crazy. I'm the bar manager at this point. I say, hello to her. She says something about how she's been up all night working, and based on her dress, which I now realize was not scrubs, but then I thought it was. I was like, oh, she's like a doctor, surgeon, maybe, something like that.
Right. Right.
Um, I leave her. I don't think twice about it because it's like she's been up all night. Of course, she's just harried and getting food on the way home. And then she's walking to the restroom, and there's a table about 8 gentlemen having dinner, and she stops to talk to them. And there for a while, probably about 15 minutes later, she leaves, goes to the restroom. I walk by. I notice they look a little like weird. And so I stop by and it's like, is everything okay? And one guy was like, who is that? And so I thought that she just knew them, but no. And then I waited for her to get out of the restroom, and I was watching her closer. This wasn't a doctor. This was just a crazy lady. And just like, so I had to come up to her like, were you talking to these people? And then she said something that was a little incoherent. And I was like, I'm going to have to just ask you to go. I'm sorry. And what I thought were scrubs were just like really grayish clothes. I didn't look closely enough at first, but you're by a hospital, someone stays up late. She didn't look like she was on
Mhm.
drugs or anything. I just kind of assumed it's like, doctor. No, she's just crazy. And like, I should have trusted that gut reaction that first moment when I saw her crazy eyes, but I just didn't. But oh yes.
And
And
I
then
think that's
of
probably
course,
like That must be difficult to be. Thankfully, I've never had to ask somebody to leave, but I feel like that's a very hard moment to say. I mean, it is hard to even cut somebody off, too. That's really
I was going to
hard.
say that's when it's hard. You know,
Yeah.
there's. I had one guy who was just like yelling at me that I was a racist. It's like 2017, I think, if I remember correctly. I was kicking him out of the bar, and it's like it was this white guy. It's like it doesn't make any sense. Like you're clearly so drunk. But like, why are you calling me a racist? Just you have to leave.
Right.
But yeah, I've had some wild things happen, and you know, it's good working at a steakhouse that's expensive because the price self-selects out a lot of the crazy. Not all,
Yeah.
you know. I think there's crazy peoples all the way up the economic ladder, but just a larger number of them, I would say.
Right. Right.
Well,
Yeah. And
Heather, I actually,
especially when,
I've got to get ready for work. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've got to
yeah.
get going. But I really had a pleasure talking to you today. It really was fun. And who knows, maybe we'll have you on for round 2. It's clearly we got a bunch of stories we got to go through.
Yeah. 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 I could definitely, I mean, yeah, anybody who's been in the service industry, there's always stories.
Always. But
This was
have
a
a good
pleasure,
one.
too, for me, too.
Awesome. Thank you again for listening. If you have not, please like, subscribe, and also leave a comment on this show. Every interaction is really, really appreciated. I respond personally to every message, comment I get. Episodes of this show come out every Tuesday, every week. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you.